John Umbanhowar, welcome to the Forward One podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to finally be up in mission control. Sun came out. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things you just tell me is what's your, briefly, what's your journey from where you came from? How do you end up as an architect, and what kind of projects do you do?
Yeah, I would say I was one of those kids who didn't know that I wanted to be an architect very first thing. And it was sort of a accumulation of activities and skills that I gathered. And I would say what really sort of clinched it was spending a year in Europe and going through Gothic cathedrals and Romanesque cathedrals and just sort of learning the power of what building and architecture and space can do. But prior to that, had grown up in a family of academics. We grew up on a farm. We restored a 1800-year-old from the 1800s farmhouse, and so it was built in. And I saw both my mom and dad learning how to do things, and the attitude was you're always learning things. And then sort of college ending, I was like, what am I going to do? Went to a liberal arts school. Was an art history major. It's like, how do I put that all together? And sort of looked at how architecture was made and where architecture sort of sat in culture. And it resonated at that point.
It has a huge impact in culture, for sure.
Yeah.
So you were how old when you went to Europe?
I was 19. So I went my sophomore year, not my junior year.
Okay.
Was going to college in the same town I grew up in. So was itching to get out. And so come sophomore year, I'm like, can I do it this year, please?
Yep.
And off I went. Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Minnesota, in a town called Northfield, two-college town, Carleton College, St. Olaf College. Yep. Yeah. So
nice.
My mom and dad both worked at Carleton and St. Olaf. All five of us kids ended up going to Carleton.
Wow.
A little bit of a deal there. So, financially savvy, but great school.
Yeah, great school. I went to McAllister for a year.
Oh, did not know that. Yeah. Our competitors.
Yeah. Yep.
I played baseball for a couple of years at Carleton.
Okay.
So
look at that.
yeah, we went up against Mac.
Yep.
Yeah. So great, great location, which before I moved to LA, it was 45 minutes outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul, which that drive seemed like forever. Today, driving over here from Venice to go 8 miles, it was almost 45 minutes.
Right.
So it's funny how as you get older, scales of things change and evolve.
Minnesota, LA, big scale change for sure.
Yep.
I was following the Lakers.
Where in Europe, if I may ask, I know I'm sure you traveled quite a bit, but were there any particular places within Europe that most resonated to you and informed you?
So I landed in Paris and spent 6 months there, and the intent was to stay there the full year. I think I was too much of a small town kid, and I got a little overwhelmed with it. And I was there on a sister program with Columbia University. And my school, Carleton, had a program down in Po, down on the border of the Pyrenees. So I switched midstream and went down to Po, and really glad I got to do it. I got to see Paris, cultural center that it is, and then ended up in Po, which is the country. So yeah, it was a really varied experience.
Very cool.
So mostly based in there, but then ran all over the place. Ended up with a Swedish girlfriend, not a French girlfriend. So spent 4 months in Sweden, and to see that culture and almost too clean. A little bit like Switzerland to me. So I still like messiness, but it was great just to learn, see different cultures and see their built environment and see how they do it differently.
Most of the time, are you hired by the end user, or are there instances where you're hired by a realtor?
There are, I would say most of the time it's end user. But we do get brought in by realtors and or developers. We have a couple projects in the Palisades now where I think people have tuned into what we do, and they want to sort of step their game up in terms of what's offering or differentiate, which I'm sure is a term you guys use a lot. And how can you differentiate, and how can you make a home even put the bones on the home and then have in the package, if it's a new home, what can be added to that, how far a client wants to take it. Because, ultimately a residence it's a reflection of who the owner is. And all of us like to put that into our house. And so I think to show that you have an architect, and in this case, one of the houses I'm thinking of, we have an interior designer on who's done a full artistic package where they've brought in artists from around LA, and these are on offer as well. And so a client could go full in on that and sort of do a full package house, and have that built into the house instead of it just being a developer house and saying, here, hand it off.
And let me ask you this, per Paul's question, an interior designer, do they bring you into scenarios often?
They have as well. Yeah.
Okay.
It's sort of reciprocal.
Okay.
And it's interesting. I think sometimes architects, we give ourselves too much credit for the part that we play in it. And I think we're great listeners, and that's what we do. Is I think I listen more than I talk. Cut me off right now if I'm talking too much. But I think the project is so complicated and layered when you do a home, that it's nice for us to hand it off to that point where someone can start to talk about, well, what's going to be in your bathroom, what's your furniture going to be. And we invest a lot in sort of the bones of the house and the skin. So it goes both ways. But my partner down in Florida, so our office has both offices here in Venice and in Florida. He's 17 years my senior. He went back to graduate school for architecture. That's how I ended up in LA. I ended up going to SciArc out here, and he came back mid-career. And his partner is a realtor.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so we know that interface very well. That's where property is transacted.
Yep.
What's your range of product? So, I guess the smallest thing that I could imagine would be like a light remodel on the residential side, all the way up to like some massive house build. And then also, do you do commercial? So what range have you done, and where are you now?
So we've done from the infinitesimally small. We've done furniture. We have furniture pieces that we've done for clients. We've done in recent years small ADUs around LA. Then we've done houses which are 15, 16,000 square feet.
Do you do any commercial?
We do.
Buildings?
We do. So I'm really excited about a project we have in Venice right now. Paul, you know where my office is, right on Windward.
Right.
And the client building owner right next door was like, oh, we have an architect next door. And so we're doing a new build right there, and we're going to be building over the sidewalk, doing arcades. And
wow.
It's a big, complicated regulatory process. It's California. There's neighborhood councils. There's the coastal commission. There's the city commission, the cultural arts commission, because we're going over the sidewalk. So that's city property. So
wow.
Yeah.
One of the great things that I think, because look it's, this is a best practices realtor podcast, and it's like, why should a realtor care? And I have some answers to that, which I'd like to throw out and see what you think of them, and, add or subtract to them. One of the things is that, I believe being a realtor is now more of a skills business than it ever has been. So that, to earn your commission, I think you should add a lot of value
and distinguish yourself.
And quite frankly, with what people, there's the whole commission dispute, but what commission is right now, I believe that lots of realtors, maybe people will throw darts at me, but I think a lot of realtors are overpaid. I also think a lot of realtors are underpaid. So the ones that are overpaid in a way are like, they're just not adding a lot of value. The ones that are underpaid are the ones that have information and ideas that can change the outcome of the deal in a way that's, makes a 3% or a 5% commission, worth pennies. And so one of the things is that when you're in a complicated area, California, if you're near the ocean, I mean, here I am talking like we've got John sitting right here, but if you're near the ocean, you've got maybe you have there's a city plan, maybe there's a county plan, maybe there's some sort of state regulations, and you have this crazy thing called the Coastal Commission. They've got to all overlay on each other.
And then you're on a hillside.
Yeah. And there's all these different things. Now there's fire, we'll talk about that later. That to earn my value as a realtor, I want to create before a client needs it. I want to create relationships with certain information sources, certain people that could be great sources of information in different areas. For example, having nothing to do with our conversation today, loan rates are a big deal. Yep. So there's way more options for loan rates than people generally think. So one of the things I do is educate myself on all the different types of loan options. So, and then when I meet a client, I go, well, what kind of house are you going into? All these sorts of things. And so knowing that, I'm adding more value. Now, on the home as an investment, which I think is also important, what you can do with the property is vitally important. You've got a certain size lot, you've got a certain size house. Can you put an ADU? Can you put a junior ADU and an ADU? Can you change the footprint of the house? What's easy? What's hard? How long does stuff take to get through the permitting process? All these sorts of things. Now I'm really adding value, and that's why I asked John to come on, and that's why I have a relationship with John, because when I have a client, I want to offer a value add, and I do believe that having a great relationship with a smart architect that I believe has local knowledge. So John might have amazing design skill, and I might like him so much that I'm thinking about building a house in upstate New York. Maybe I love John's work so much I want him to help there, but I'm worried about what's the plans and permits and how does all that stuff work in upstate New York, and I want somebody local in addition to the design.
Yeah, you got to meld the theoretics and the design with the practical, right? And per Paul's point, like, we're as agents only as good as our team, right? No one knows it all. So what resources do you bring to the table which give your clients real added value, right? And you give them options and potential, which is part of creating value for them. And having a great architect, especially in LA, to Paul's point, with all the idiosyncrasies of our landscape, literally and figuratively, really can distinguish you as an agent.
Yeah, and I could even take grade off architect. I could just say a well-informed architect, just knowing codes. I mean, we've worked with realtors in the past, and just been able to provide people information. I think to Paul's point of just regulatory boundaries of what you can or can't do. And as we know, for some people, this is the biggest investment that they make, mm-hmm. or that they shouldn't make. So we come in on projects. I'm thinking of one in Malibu where the couple was adoring the property, and they're like, we don't know why no one's built on here. There's this great existing slab, and we're going to do it. And the realtor's selling it. And I'm not casting aspersions on realtors, but it sounded like someone was eager to make a deal. And we didn't end up working with them on that project because we steered them away from it. Mm-hmm. And we were
good for you.
We were able to do some digging and found some old soils reports, and the house to this day, and this was 15 years ago, that lot is not occupied because the thing's ready to slide down the hill.
Wow.
Because we have to think in geological time. You can think about, I'm going to be there 10 years, but in geological time, that thing could go anytime. Ended up doing for a house for them down in Laguna Beach. So I think they valued what we brought to that.
And that would be powerful for a realtor to have those resources.
How often do you come into a project when someone's, recently bought a home?
I would say half the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's pretty significant. Yeah.
I would caution that to my story were even more useful ahead of time. And that actually is a service that we offer. So I would think of, the architect we can do for you beforehand and afterwards. So not only are we going to tell you, we can do this and we can do that, but it's like, hey, there are also things that we know going forward. Like we're doing a house over in Highland Park right now, where before we bought it, we pointed out it was this leftover lot on a difficult hillside, pretty typical LA story. And we pointed out, hey, there's no sewer connection, which is weird for a lot surrounded by a whole bunch of other houses. And that's now turned into a 2.5-year adventure where we have the sewer in now, but the guy who installed it via the contractor dug into a hillside. And so now we have to reinforce the hillside. So there's these stories that happen. So, this value that our client saw is kind of panning out equal now.
And actually, to John's point, I bought the last house that I bought, it's on a flat piece of dirt that's got a big hillside down below, and there's an infinity pool. One of the things I did was I had John come out and look at it. I think we brought an engineer out, and one of the things that he did was, and he can then go to the city and see what permits were filed, what was done, because you can't see into what was done with the pool. But, how did they set it in there? How many caissons did they use? What kind of approvals did they get? And prior to doing that, when John first came out and looked at it, he's like, all right. And it was a value add house. So there's a lot of stuff wrong with it. And instead of saying like, hey, run from this house, I'm just like, all right, so, ballpark, what's it going to cost to fix this and fix that? And we maybe want to change the roof line. Maybe we want to do this. What's the ballpark? Just so I know what I'm getting into. And I got a great ballpark from him. And he said, however, if that pool, like, I don't know how much, because it was obvious the contractor was cutting corners at least toward the end of the project, which makes sense. You're loaded up with cash. Things are then taking longer than you think. It's costing more than you think. You're over budget. Now you're making shortcuts. Some things were done really well. Some things were not. And John said to me, everything, there's a lot wrong with it, but it can all be fixed at this very reasonable number, which made it a great deal. And he said, however, if that pool is not set in there properly, run. Between John and the engineer and the contractor that these guys recommended, they're like, look, somebody could do it cheaper, but we for sure would do it right. And we'd charge you 500 G's to put that pool in. Now, I'd be very surprised if that guy spent 500 G's to put the pool in, but we got to make sure that pool is not sliding down the hill. And if it is, run. And so then, I paid him to do the due diligence and spend some extra money and go to the city and pull the permits. Like, okay, well, all the caissons are, it's in the plans. It's all in there. I'm like, okay, well, how do I know it's in the ground? He's like, well, if it's in the plan and it's signed off, it means that the inspector came out and made sure that these things were done all along. So, that was a way that I got John involved before. And then I was able to figure out, is this thing a great deal? It still would have been an okay deal or a break-even deal, like the sewer thing, the redoing the pool would have eaten all of the upside plus the huge hassle. So that enabled me. That's one of the ways to do that.
I think you call in all your experts, and having those people on your team can only strengthen your position to say a house is a complicated thing. A piece of property is a complicated thing, especially in LA. Probably the houses you're finding are up on hills and complicated sites. Have someone look at it. What
distinguishes a good architect? Tell us, like, what what are some of the basics that if I'm
How
an
do we
agent,
find? We know you.
Yeah.
We know you. We trust you. It's all good. We've worked with you before. Now I'm a realtor. If you're a realtor and you're in LA, look up John, and we'll of course, we're going to drop John's info in the show notes. If we're somewhere else, it's a national podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, how are they going to find out? Who should I talk to?
I will tout one of the national architect agencies, AIA. You can find great sort of reputable architects within that entity. Look at who's pulling building permits. Talk to builders. Find builder architect teams of people who have worked together. We all have a limited amount of time, so it's like, how can you shorten the process to do this? So I would start with organizations and builders where you can find these people, or the old simple drive around and see signs up. Walk onto a job site, say, hey, who's doing this house? See who's building. Those people are usually the people who are doing well. So I think from a technical standpoint, that's sort of a outcome of being a great architect. We could go way deeper into what makes a great architect, how you treat light, how you treat material, how you listen and collaborate with clients. Because I think we're only as good as great clients. And I think all of us have our areas that we focus on and that we're interested in. And I think I have the luxury of having clients who are really into their homes and are willing to invest in it. Maybe even to the point where it may not be a value, but it's a placebo value, and you make a great home, and maybe you spend more than you want to, and maybe you break even on the other end.
It's not just financial; it's emotional and life quality.
Yeah, I could go off on what your home is and what it means to you. It's where you start your day. It's where you end your day. It's where a lot of people work out of their house. So I think it provides sort of primordial needs of I think you need an enclosed space and a comfortable space. And then if you have the property and the location, you need a space where you can look out and see other things. And how does a good architect capture that?
AIA sounds like something Institute of Architects or
American Institute of Architects.
Institute of Architects. So you go on the website and,
they'll have local chapter members.
Okay. And then I like your point too of driving around. So like Venice is going to have a very different permitting process than Los Feliz. And if you can find some people that are doing a lot of building there, you could inquire and say, hey, what architects do you recommend? I believe that a realtor specializing in an area should find out who is doing a ton of work there. And even to the point of, it sounds like a little, I don't think it's overkill at all, but what if I went down to the building department and, hung out a little bit and said, hey,
we're thinking the same thing. And that, I'll call you a little old school, but that's how I used to do it. Nobody goes down to the building department anymore, because that was one of the great outcomes of COVID in LA is they finally went electronic, and a lot of records are online. So we were thinking the exact same thought. You could drive around your neighborhood. You don't have to look at what architect signs are, because sometimes we don't put our signs up and buildings just go up and there's no signs. But you can take down an address, and then you go to the website here in LA, Zemus, and you can look up a permit, and it'll say who's the builder, who was the architect, who submitted the plans. And that would almost be a faster way of doing it, is you could just go note addresses and then go look at, and
that's smart.
Contact information is usually there.
Is Zemus a national or is it local?
Zemus is LA's local version.
Okay.
So it also depends on sort of the sophistication of a building department. I'm probably speaking more to major metropolitan areas. But we're doing a project up in Napa right now, and all their stuff is online too. I can look up addresses in Napa, and it's in Napa County. And that's a relatively small building department. but their information is online.
Yeah.
And I also, I use ChatGPT I use the large language models for more stuff than anybody I know, and not a bad place to start. Who are the architects that specialize in a particular style? Let me ask you this. Are most architects generalists, or do they have a particular style they're best at?
I think if there's a specific product, find someone who specifically, if you can find that person. Again, we have the blessing of being in LA where you can throw a stone and hit an architect. So there's a lot of us doing practice here. I think all of us probably call ourselves jack of all trades, master of none. But I think there's definitely, you can look on people's website and see what their affinity is, and where they
gravitate towards.
And I think you want to, if that speaks to you, and then I would say this to your realtors, if that speaks to your client, that's who you want to go to. So maybe you want to have a couple people who do it differently. Style, yeah. That's sort of a slippery slope of what, what is style.
Is there something you would say you sort of gravitate more toward?
I think we want people to, I'm a sensual person. I like feeling materials and seeing materials. So I like probably simple geometric forms that have materials that can age and patina. Shiny materials, dull materials, rough materials. I think sort of
it's like a natural.
Yeah. It's sort of I think quieter, sort of understated architecture is what appeals to me. It seems more timeless. I went to architecture school, and the school we went to, very flashy, exciting design. They tell you to jump in there and explore everything. And I did that for a little bit, and then I got out of school and like shiny, angular things. It's like a car, and nobody wants to take care of their building like a car. You don't want to have to buff, and a lot of people like shiny, clean cars.
Right.
You want to
comes at a cost.
Yeah, and you want to do that to a whole house.
Yeah.
And so I like a building both inside and out that can sort of evolve with its landscape. Even if you're in a tight urban lot, it's something that can sort of look like it's there, and you don't have to upkeep it all the time, and sort of it reflects where it
ages well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
And space planning is so key, to take the same amount of space and turn it into something great versus something mediocre, for sure. There are a lot of things that, if you don't have a knack for it, which I do not, you just don't know until you experience it. I lived in a super cool condo for a couple of years in Santa Monica. I mean, it's super cool. I went in there, I'm like, oh, this is unbelievable. It was very vertical. The master bedroom was actually 2 stories. And the rest of the house was not, but that was cool. And then there was this go up there, there's this loft over here, and then you go out on the roof deck. It just looked spectacular. And then it had a fabulous air conditioner. I'll tell you the brand name, even Train, which is industrial, really solid, but it also the joke I found out afterwards, it sounds like a freight train. And then you take the combination of, we don't want the ceilings to be too low. We feel like we're boxed in. Sometimes when I look at great mid-century homes, and, I'm sort of bigger, we're all I'm like, it doesn't really fit my scale in a weird way. I walk through the hallways. It's weird. The flip side of that is, it took me 2 months to get used to sleeping in a bedroom that's 2 stories.
Large volume and space around you. You can feel it. It has a presence.
I mean, I want that common area to have very high ceilings. That's cool. It gives volume. It feels great. And then when you go to bed, you kind of want it to be
cozy.
It's probably speaking of primordial, right? It's it's a little caveman. Cave woman, cave person.
Yeah.
I hit all the right things. Yeah. So, to have an architect that's going to say like, hey, love your idea. Have you ever slept in a place that has 2 stories? Josh and I, we go on open houses all the time, and a lot of times we do it. We like to see what the inventory is.
Yeah.
We also really do it as to be part of the community, which I highly recommend for realtors for sure.
I'll do it because sometimes it's just nice to go out
let's
there
go,
and
man.
see what's happening.
You can come with us, and and some of the homes we've seen are range between $20 and $60 million, and more than half of the ones that are in that price range, I think, fall into the category of spectacular to walk through, but
not spectacular to live in.
It's gonna your first night in your new $40 million home is gonna be weird, just because of the
and we're adaptable and you'll adapt to it, but it's going to be weird.
You do adapt. You adapt, and then once you feel like you've adapted, like I said, it took me like 2 months to I'm like, oh, it's okay, I'm fine now, and then as soon as I moved into a place that had like a regular bedroom, like, oh, wait a minute, I never really adapted. This is way better.
You cope with it.
You cope with it. Yeah.
No, and back to great architects. I think those are the things that we sense how variations in space can alter your mood, your outlook, your behavior. We are working on a house in the Palisades where we discussed exactly what you're talking about. It's probably going to be a $40 million spec home. And we talked about the main living room and the horizon of the view looking over down towards the airport, out to the island, downtown. And we talked about inches. Mm-hmm. We were like, well, do we want it to be 9'2"? Do we want it to be 9 feet? And the design team, we were trying to actually compress it because we have so much glass. We have like 80 feet of glass. And we were like, we actually kind of want to bring it down because it's almost like a widescreen TV and you actually don't want to see more sky. And we want the invitation to go out.
Focused.
Focus when you're in there, and an invitation to go out to the pool and patio and dining area. Sort of these subtle things that not everybody would think about. And our client was, I think, grateful for that and that discussion. But I love having that discussion because that's what a great architect too does. Is like, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear what you're saying. Then I'm going to throw it back at you in my language. We speak different languages. Architectural drawings are like high German. So even a German person could look at it and say, I don't quite get it. And so we're there to interpret it. And so I remember looking at plans with you and you're like, which way am I looking at? And like, just people look at it differently. And so it's like, we try, your job is, it's about communicating. It's like, how best can you communicate? And I think that's a great architect, is great communicators.
Yep.
Yeah. If you show me a floor plan of my own house and I look at it, I'm like, no, I have to take the floor plan and go like this. Okay. Cause this is where I come in. This is where I come in the house. Right. And now I know now I can feel the flow. If I look at my own house like this, so, okay, so you come in this way and then there's the garage and I'm like, I need
you're like me with my maps on the phone. If my arrow's not, if it's pointed north versus the direction I'm driving, I get completely discombobulated.
Like, what is going on? That's the first thing I do is I switch the map to the direction I'm going, not north, not whatever. What are some questions? And again, it's just like until you've done it a few times, like how are we even going to know as a consumer or as a realtor, like how can we figure out what's a good architect to work with and
talk to a couple if you value and hopefully I've expressed that there is a value to it. And you brought me on because I think you also believe that there is. Talk to a couple and see how they talk about architecture and homes.
You said it as well. At the end of the day, it's communication, like how effectively can they communicate? How effectively can they put things in the eyes of the client, right? It's always about, when we talk about empathy, like how do you see things from your client's eyes so they can more effectively understand what you're helping create for them?
Yeah. And architects shouldn't be interested in the building just for themselves. They should be and there are those do that, and God bless them.
Yeah.
And there are people who are fine with that. But I think it's a collaboration, and it can only be stronger. That it looks great, but it also works great.
Yeah.
And people are happy in the house, and they stay in the house. Or you're doing a spec house, and it's a great house that a lot of people love, and it moved quickly. It's a great investment.
When we talked about, for example, moving windows, because I've got a great view, like moving windows and like how are we going to address this? One of the things that John had was, an application that would tell us where the sun sets at different times of the year. And of course, when I'm trying to make this decision with John, I'm looking at like, okay, well, the sun is setting there, so I want to. And he's like, but it does set in different places.
I'm glad you remember this conversation.
Yeah, it's like it does set in different places, different parts of the year. And of course, like I'm like as soon as he said that, I already knew that I knew that. But if he didn't say that, I'm like, oh, this is where the sun sets. Period. And so. That was one of the tells, for example, for me that okay, I've got somebody that's really thinking, because people, I don't know why people want to be the smartest person in the room, but maybe I want to be the smartest person in the room sometimes, but definitely not when I'm paying somebody. I hate it when I'm the smartest person in the room and I'm paying somebody, because if I'm telling them things and they're agreeing with everything I'm saying, I'm like, why do I need this person?
Yeah, what's the value?
And then when you say something like that, and I'm like, oh, I mean, I really did know that, but I just didn't think of it. Yep. And then that does change everything for sure.
Yep.
Generally, what do architects charge?
Depends on the services that we're offering. Soup to nuts, we usually calculate it based on an agreed to construction cost. So if you're doing ground up new, architects will charge 10% to 15% of what construction cost is. It could go even higher than that if you desire a lot of visuals and 3Ds and how far we take the visualizations and details. And it's an investment, and how far can you take it, and what value does it bring to you, and where do you let off? And so I like to know that up front, because if we're doing something simple, then we'll step back and say, okay, we're doing a very simple package for somebody, but we're really going to make it sing and make the spaces strong. If we're not involved in final placement of X, Y, or Z, we're going to give it good bones. I think one thing I learned both from architecture school that I still practice to this day, and speaking of projects and the process they have to go through, be they regulatory, be they cost, be they clients, be they builders, is if your concept is strong from the beginning, it can survive any storm and still come out at the end. It may not be everything, but if sort of like the seed is there, the plant will come up. It might come up differently than you thought. You may have 2 flowers instead of 20 flowers on the thing, but at least you got it up, and that's a strong concept. So I think really thinking beforehand, like what are we doing with our project and process here, and I think that's. So I would say that architects can offer minimal services, and we can offer maximum services. And I think sometimes it's interesting to have a client say, hey, I just want you to give me a concept and I'll run with it, because houses don't need architects. Legally, you don't need an architect to work on a house. You could get it engineered, and you could take plans down to the building department and say, hey, I'm an owner builder. Or you could get an engineer to draft things up for you. So you don't need an architect. Yep. But we're talking about value. I think we bring immense value to projects, and they do differentiate projects that have architects or not. I think among architects, we say that that's the difference between shelter and architecture. Anybody can provide shelter. If you want to enrich and enhance, I think architects and designers bring that to buildings.
That's right.
And now I'll say something that, again, I did the sort of what could be controversial on the commission for a realtor. As you know, we own brokerages. We have lots and lots of realtors working for us, including, for example, if I know there's a particular house I want to buy, I don't want to do the deal myself. I'll just go to the manager, who's also a friend of mine, and they're already on salary. Hey, just, do this deal for me, and I'll, they do it for free. I'll throw you an extra $500 or whatever. Just sort of do this deal for me, and they'll do that. So I can get realtor services, especially from where I sit. I can get realtor services for, let's just say, virtually nothing. And yet the last 2 or 3 or more purchases I've made, house and investment property, I have paid not just regular commission, I've paid like full commission, because that realtor is bringing me a property that the difference between paying 2.5% or 3% or 0 if I have my friend do it for me, there's a big delta there. So let's just say that's $30,000 difference on $1 million home. Now, if a realtor is bringing me a deal, it's like, hey, I'm gonna sell you this house. I found this house. It's on the market, by the way. Okay, so it's on the market. I'm not getting some insider deal. And somebody comes to me, hey, Paul, I know what you like, and I've got this house. It's been sitting on the market for 90 days. They want $1.1 million for it. It's a dump, which is why it didn't sell for $1.1 million. And I think they'd take $1 million, but which is not a great. It's not a great discount. Or maybe they'll take $1.05 million. It's not a great discount, but if you do this and you do this and you do this other thing and you add, the ADU or whatever, you put a couple $100,000 in it, now you're at $1.8 million. That guy brings me that deal. Am I saying, well, I own the brokerage, so let me cut your fee in half or whatever? I'm like, dude, let me pay you full fee, period. And I do think that applies to architects. And and maybe it's not as true, but I said, a lot of realtors are overpaid, throw the darts at me. And then a lot of realtors are underpaid. And the ones that are underpaid are the ones that are adding value. And when you say 10 to 15% of construction cost, and we just go right back into that sort of scenario, let's say I buy a tear down in LA, things are expensive. I buy a tear down in some neighborhood, maybe it's $800,000, and then we look and we're going to build, this house, and it's $1.2 million. Now I'm into it for $2 million, and we're going to try and get 2.8 for it or something like that. I've got the carry costs, I've got all the risk involved. That would be something that would be a normal thing. And I'm looking at the $1.2 million in construction costs and be like, 10% of that is 120 G's. I'm going to find a guy that's going to do it for me for 5%. And there are those people out there.
Yeah. Definitely.
But if you go to an architect that's going to totally crush it for you, that same $1.2 million spent in the right way, where now I'm paying 15%, right? So now I'm paying 180 grand. That you can get you should really be able to get a multiple of what the architect is charging in terms of return on investment. Or maybe we only sold it for $120,000 more, but it was on the market for 2 days instead of the 120 days that other things are taking to sell. These are big things.
Or your plans didn't get through the building department because of X reason, and
which is a total nightmare.
Yeah,
right.
Your carrying costs were 3 or 4 months more.
Yep.
Or your builder comes back and says these drawings are incomplete, and they have to halt construction. So I think you pay your professionals, and if they're good professionals, it's worth it.
Yep. As I always say, price only matters in the absence of value, and those that compete on value, like yourself, are the ones that thrive. And obviously, to your point, people get a multiple return on what they pay people that provide value.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and again, back to my statement, I think you also have to be in the market for providing something of a higher value. And that's what architects bring. There's home builders all over the country. Anybody can build a house. And so it just sort of, I think, depends on what echelon you're in and what product you're looking to do in the end. What do you want?
Yep.
And does it sing to you? And does it move you as well? Because hopefully we're not all just doing this just for the money. I think architecture and building and space moves anyone, whether you're aware of it or not. And I think, speaking of moving, I think that moves real estate as well.
Yeah.
As you said, someone walks in, they're like, this space is right. I want to buy it.
Yeah.
It's gone in 2 days.
Yeah.
Another interesting question I find interesting is if you get like a pedigreed architect, like, I mean, I don't know, are you going to really find a Frank Lloyd Wright or whatever? What would the same house, how much more is the same house going to sell for if it's a Neutra or a, like really famous architect? And maybe that's a realtor question. I don't know.
I think it's good. It's a realtor question because I would probably toot my own horn and say, yeah, it is going to sell for more.
Oh, it will sell for more.
Yeah.
But I just want to know
but
how
it's,
much more.
but I also then think it's a more specific clientele who's looking for that. Probably just like vintage cars or certain people who are looking for certain kind of cars. And it's a smaller market for that, but there are people out there. We worked on a Neutra house for a client after it had been in the original family client for 50 years. And it was competitive to get that house beforehand. And that was one of those houses where we're like, we don't even have to look at it, buy it.
Oh yeah. And
it gets back to like, it just makes me think of like, those people are like timeless in many ways. And it's amazing when we see how many homes do we walk through and we're like, this is like the flavor of the day. And it's like, what is this going to feel and look like? And what's the experience going to be like in this home, 3 years from now? It's like so clear that it's not going to age well, you know, and I'm blown away by how often that happens. It's just very short-sighted.
Well, and what developers will do is they'll do back of the napkin math. I do back of the napkin math, but the back of the napkin math, which is like, so we're going to buy this house for, this ramshackle house for $1 million. If we tear it down, we can build, 4,000 square feet, and, that's maxed out on the lot. That's where you get these sort of, I heard the term a long time ago, McMansion, which is where you've got like all these like giant houses stuffed on these little lots.
Right.
I call them lot busters.
Lot busters, yeah.
That's good.
But now I have a new one, which is called the McModern, which is just like these modern,
boxes.
They all look the same. They're cool looking. They're slammed onto a lot. They're in a neighborhood. They look out of place, but there's one here and there's one there.
And they put a facelift on it in front.
Right.
The front has some articulation to it, and it speaks that style. And I would argue that, and I'm a modern architect, and I love modern architecture for all the reasons that I do, but it's a lot harder to execute than traditional architecture, which has reasons for why there's detailing and trims and moldings, because it's to hide where construction tolerances give way and you can put a molding over things. But if you're trying to build, like, I agree with you on these. I see these modern spec homes and they're trying to build one horizontal piece that's 50 feet across. And when you see that thing go whoa, 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 like that, it ruins the whole gambit. So it's hard to do, but I agree with you. It has made my job easier because I think that language for so long was not. And Dwell magazine, I think, has been a big proponent of that. It took them many years, I think, to become a part of American culture. I think modern architecture for a very long time was not something that most Americans could see consuming or living in. And don't want to go into the history of that, but I think
is it too austere?
Yeah, and I think it was architects saying, no, let's make it, down to the simplest of things that we want to talk about. We don't actually want it to be about the architecture. We want it to be about how it frames a view and how the light comes into the space. And like I was saying earlier, like what material are you using and how can that material be expressed? And we don't want to make reference to a German Rococo house because that's history, and we don't want to do history. We want to move forward. So, Richard Neutra sort of, his language was, it sort of embraced how our 2x4 is made. How can we express that? How our big glulam beams? We're not going to change those. We're actually just going to put it together and see what kind of compositions we can make to that. And so, I think there was a certain moral dictum to it that maybe people didn't find. Like, this is pure. This is right. And it's not an easy pill to swallow.
Yeah. And then it's more about the art or the architect than the end user sometimes. But then again, like Frank Lloyd Wright, Falling Water, built it right over a pretty fast moving creek. Yeah. And the whole, it's pretty cool. Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah. No, this is why I do it. That's why I'm here. I love talking about this. I'll talk about it to realtors. I'll talk about it to school children. I'll talk about it to other architects. I'm passionate about it.
Fire round?
You know what? Before I go to fire round, I want to ask this. To what extent are you, we may be in a particular area that's even more attuned to it, but to what extent are you taking climate change into account when you're advising clients?
As much as we can, and as much as they will listen. We're sort of on the front line, and we're also leaders. So I think if we can do it, and then as we're talking about builders, people can build your own home. People who are in the building trades, if they can follow our lead and other sort of forward-thinking builders, because it's sort of this loop of building and the practice of building affects the environment a lot. Making materials, transporting materials, building houses, and we're not going to stop doing that. And it's not a perfect practice, but how can we perfect that and be conscientious about what we're doing? So I think about it all the time. It's like sustainability. Sustainability is, how does what we're building affect the environment? And then what you and I had been mentioned earlier about what we wanted to talk about was resilience. It's like, how does the environment affect the building? So sort of this inside outside way of looking at things. And those two are interconnected.
Yep.
Yeah. And I will say this, John sent me a study that he had done and created about fire hardening a house, and also, the way to landscape and surround a house to make it more fire resistant. And that became even more, and we'll put that in the show notes. With your permission. Yeah. And that'll give people something to look at and check out. And also hopefully we'll call you as well. And
I don't even want to call. I want people to practice it, because it can happen on individual homes, but if it doesn't happen sort of blanket wide, then we're not solving the problem. We're starting to work at it. So
that's right.
Call me or don't call me, but have a look at it. And even if you own a home, just look at simple ways to, especially if you're in tight lots, not to have fires jump from house to house.
Yeah. And one of the things that we did, because we're always trying to stay ahead of the curve for realtors and in real estate, is we've created relationships with some insurers, including wholesale insurers. And when you're insuring a really, basically, to be efficient, insurance is sold on they say bean counters, but that's really what it is. It's an actuarial decision. So they go, okay, well, let's do car insurance. Well, you're a 24-year-old male. You just got a Ford Mustang. You've had one speeding ticket. This is telling me disaster waiting to happen, as opposed to, 36-year-old dad with 2 kids that's buying a minivan that, these are just actuarial points. And then they'll use your zip code and they'll use your driving record and what kind of car and your demographics to write the policy. And a lot of times that's what they're doing with the bean counting with the, are you in a fire zone or aren't you? I happen to be located next door to the fire department. Now, somebody should give me a discount for that. I mean, really, the chance of my house burning down as opposed to one that's located 2 miles from the fire department is different, and it should be reflected. It's not. But we're now talking to insurers. It has to be a more expensive house because in order for them to get into it, but they actually go and they look at a policy and they go, wow, if you spend, there was one in particular, it was a very expensive home. And, everything can be insured at a price. It was a very, very expensive home, and their insurance was $160,000+ a year. But the insurance experts, instead of just saying, and how did they come to that number? They go, what's your zip code? You're in a high fire zone. How many square feet are you? Therefore, they do a cost to replace, and that's it. There's your number. And what's the chance of it burning down? There's your plus profit. There's your number. And what these guys were able to do was take that $160,000 bid, go in and say, well, actually, if you do this and you do that and you do these other things, then it was about $50,000 worth of stuff to do the house, and it brought the policy all the way down to $100,000. So when you do all the stuff,
so almost immediate.
Well,
return.
When you do all the stuff,
Yeah.
you save $10,000 immediately, and you have a house that's got to be worth more because it's fire hardened, and then it costs less to operate, and then the next year you're saving, a full $60,000.
That's adding value.
That's
right?
adding value.
And at the end of the day, as you say, listen, know your client, and then give them options that they perhaps never would have known on their own. That's huge value.
I would love to see things, and just sort of moving further out in the community. I can talk about specific ways to do things. Not my goal today. I would love to see things like tax credits. If you fire harden your house,
Yep, for sure.
Yep.
It'll start to happen. I think.
Yep.
It will.
It's all good business and good life is aligning incentives.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Okay, let's go to fire round, and that is we're going to ask you some cool questions.
Nice.
And we could go back and forth on them, but we're not going to do that. So we'll ask a question, you give an answer, and we'll move on. So, what's your idea of perfect happiness?
gardening.
What's the quality you most admire in others?
Empathy.
What's a talent you'd like to have?
Kite surfing.
Wow.
What's your greatest achievement?
Having 2 kids.
Nice. What's your greatest extravagance?
My 72 mustard yellow Chevy truck, which I treat very nicely.
Cool. Matches your glasses.
Yeah.
You want to ask one more and then I'll do my
What's your
closing.
favorite childhood memory?
I don't know why it's my favorite, but I remember rolling down the sidewalk when my family lived in Pocatello, Idaho, when we were in a city, and rolling out into the street and a driver coming by and saving me from running in front of him. But I don't know why it's my favorite childhood memory, but it was like, I think it's like people are looking out for you.
That's great.
Nice.
And I was scared as a kid, but it's like, oh, people are looking out for you.
That's good. It's a good belief to have.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of great hikes in LA, and you traverse one of these great hikes, you go all the way up to the top. And when you look down, you see your family, your 2 kids, loved ones, work colleagues, clients, and your community. What's the one thing you shout?
The one thing I shout, I want more.
I love it.
Wow.
I usually do those hikes on full moon nights too. So I get to see the lights, and you have to pay more attention.
More.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. You
That's
get to see
awesome.
the city sparkle.
Well, very inspiring, very
Thank you
enlightening,
so
very
much.
informative. Love
Really
it, John.
appreciate it.
You.
Enjoy the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.